Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the second session of the Let's Talk Dad series. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight's session is a bite-sized session looking at our teenagers' mental health and well-being. My name is Chloe Pope, and I'm from the Safety and Resilience Consultancy. And tonight we're really lucky to have Jamie Keys joining us. Jamie is the Wellbeing Area Manager of Young Devon. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jamie.
No worries. Thanks, Chloe, for having me.
Thanks, Jamie. We also have my colleague Emma Stevens with us. Emma is also from the Safety and Resilience Consultancy, and Emma will be monitoring the chat tonight. But also, Emma, do feel free to jump into the discussion tonight too if there's anything that you want to add. And speaking of the chat, we really do encourage use of this as a safe and supportive place. Please avoid talking directly about young people, and please don't use any identifying names or any other details, even if it is when talking about your own children. The chat has been really useful in previous sessions for parents to share ideas, services, websites, and apps with each other, so please feel free to do this tonight too. Tonight, Jamie and I will be talking for just 20 minutes about mental health and well-being, and I'm sure you can appreciate that we could talk for much, much longer about this subject. So if after this session you would like to hear more, you can head to our YouTube channel, which has several of our previous webinars and recordings for you to browse. We'll pop the link to our YouTube channel in the chat now, and it will also be posted a little bit later. And on that note, tonight's session will also be recorded for you to watch at a later date. I also wanted to start just by giving a quick trigger warning tonight before we get into the session. Listening to us talk about mental health and well-being may, of course, be tricky. We might make reference to some really difficult subjects tonight, including self-harm. So if you do need to pop us on mute or even completely step away from the session and do something to take care of you, please do that instead. So let's make a start. Let's start with looking at how common mental health difficulties are. Well, looking at statistics, we know that around 75% of all mental health problems are established by the age of 18 years old. And research shows us that within the UK, the three most commonly diagnosed mental health difficulties in teenagers are depression, anxiety, and conduct problems. And conduct problems are related to a pattern of violent or aggressive behaviour. There are other mental health difficulties that are also common in teenagers, thinking about things like eating disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, self-harm related behaviours, and substance misuse. However, there are over 200 classified and recognised forms of mental health difficulties, all of which can occur for our teenagers. And these mental health difficulties can, of course, occur on their own, but also as well as alongside others. So, Jamie, I'm going to come to you now. In your experience in working with teenagers, are there any signs that dads could look out for that might indicate that their teenager is struggling with their mental health?
I guess, Chloe, that I'd like to start by just saying that the fact is that we all have mental health. We all
Mm,
have good days and bad days. We all have days when we struggle. We all have days when we're not quite so on it. Brain's not quite working quite as well. And our
mm,
young people have that. And I think we're going from when you're a dad of a teenager, you're going from that point where you are the expert on your young person. You know
mm,
them. You've managed to raise them and kept them alive to this point. So we all need to pat ourselves on the back for that, I think. But I
yeah,
think, with being the expert, up until this point, you've always known when they were tired. You'd know when they needed something to drink or what their needs were. I guess when you get to being a teenager, it's looking out for changes. It's
okay,
looking
yeah,
out for where things are different. Things that you would have expected them to behave in a certain way, and that's changing slightly. Things that they're not quite so, that they're not so interested in anymore. It might be that they are quieter in certain situations. It might be that they retreat to their bedroom and don't come out. But what
mm,
I'd say is those aren't necessarily signs that their mental health is, struggling with their mental health. Young people and teenagers, their brains are changing. If you look at brain development and teenagers, their brains are plastic. It's
mm,
changing all the time. And so their whole brain structure is changing from those children who were our little ones to those people who are going out into their world. And so just the fact that they're changing and they don't want to be with you as much, or want to change and be with their friends or be on their own, those necessarily aren't bad signs. It's just the signs that they're developing into those social animals that they need to be to thrive in the world as they go along. I just say it's looking at, it's knowing them, it's
Yeah.
listening to them, it's just being aware of who they are and being around and being
Mm,
able to look out for those things that might just make you go, I wonder what that's about. That curiosity, being able to have that thought process, that's different. What's going on there? Or I wonder what they dealt with that situation a bit differently. I wonder what that means.
mm,
And just trying to, just be there and be valid and be around them and show up every day are those things that enable you to see those signs and be part of their world, so they'll hopefully tell you about what's going on.
absolutely. So it's looking out for that kind of change, that change to the what's maybe normal for them, would you say?
Yeah, and it's understanding what's normal for them and understanding what's going to become their new normal and
Yeah.
trying to help them along the way towards that.
Mm,
It's, there are lots of things which will trigger our young people that, I'm a dad as well. I went into my daughter's bedroom last night and she was in tears because she'd forgotten her homework. And
mm,
so, you know, it's that moment where you go, right, I need to solve this,
yeah.
go full dad on it and try
Yeah.
and solve it. But sometimes it's just listening to who they are and what's going on for them, and the fact they've forgotten it is
Mm,
one of those things. But there can be a myriad of things that happen that are, things they're struggling with, or things that are difficult on a day by day basis. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've got an ongoing mental health problem. However,
yeah.
those things can develop, and if they
Mm,
don't have the love, the care, the
mm.
somebody to be there for them, somebody who's looking out for them, somebody who, those are really essential things for our young people to have while they are changing and developing.
Thank you, Jamie. That's really helpful. And I wanted to touch upon kind of what you were talking about there in terms of for some young people, they might be struggling with kind of various aspects of their life, but there might, thinking about when it might tip into kind of more significant mental health difficulties. So, kind of following on from that, I just wanted to touch upon the red flags that maybe dads and male carers might notice in young people, which are signs that maybe should be addressed urgently and probably by a health professional. So just kind of wanted to give this out for the dads here tonight. If your young person is experiencing any of the following, please do get them to the doctor as soon as possible. So thinking about things like hallucinations or abnormal beliefs and ideas, not often widely shared by others. Thinking about things like restrictive eating, not eating at all, induced vomiting. And then another red flag is that evidence of self harm, like in the trigger warning that I gave at the start, or expressing that they want to end their own life. That would, of course, be a medical emergency, and professional help should be sought straight away. And when we talk about self harm, we're not just talking about cuts to the skin, which might be the first thing that comes to mind as parents. There's also other forms of self harm, like burns to the skin or intentionally hitting themselves. When we talk about urgent help, that means that if you believe their life is at risk, they're at risk of hurting themselves, or they're a risk to others, you should always call 999. For something like restrictive eating, an urgent doctor's appointment should be made. So let's start to think about why young people may struggle with their emotional well-being in general. Well, we know that sometimes there are triggers that result in young people's mental health declining. Sometimes, of course, there aren't any at all, but we do recommend being extra vigilant at certain times in your young people's life, as research has shown us that the following life events could trigger a decline in your teenager's mental health. So thinking about things like exams, entering puberty, parental separation, difficulties with friendships or relationships, death or illness in the family, gender identity or sexuality, witnessing or experiencing trauma, a house move, particularly if it's out of area, and substance misuse. Unfortunately, we can't wrap our young people in cotton wool and stop them from experiencing most of these things, if any, from occurring. And actually, we wouldn't want to. We wouldn't want to wrap them in cotton wool. Experiencing life events is really important for our young people and their development and is part of life. But if we're aware of these events that might trigger a decline in their mental health, we can be more alert when these things happen for that extra bit of support. So, speaking of support, Jamie, that's where I wanted to come back to you. What advice would you give to dads here tonight for them to be able to support and help their young person who might be struggling with their mental health and well-being?
I guess some of those things I was talking about before about being there,
Yeah,
about listening, truly listening. And when we're
yeah,
talking about listening, sometimes as a parent, that's really difficult to do. It's
hmm,
not about defending, it's not
yeah,
about explaining things away, it's not about trying to make things normal or not, keep it small. It's actually truly listening to how they're feeling and
yeah,
giving them that space to be able to talk about that. It's also some of the really basic things. We worked with an organization, Normal Magic, who have created 10 a day for good mental health. And there's
mm,
some really great stuff in there, just basic things like hydrating,
yeah,
doing things that you love. It's about doing things, caring for others. It's about
mm,
going out into nature. Things about being proud about just who you are, the being that you are. And there's really lovely things that are just really basic that we all need to do. And I
mm,
think actually it's really difficult sometimes to remember that.
yeah,
If a young person's struggling, if a young person doesn't know what to do, can really cloud them. It can really stop them seeing the beauty inside them. It can stop them seeing their skills. It can stop them being able to value them and those around them. And I
mm,
think in those moments, sometimes it's about giving them space. It's about
mm,
enabling them to have those things, those basic needs that they have. I guess also for parents, it's about taking care of yourself. It's about making sure that you're getting help. It's
yeah,
making sure that you're taking care of your own mental health. It's As a dad, it's really easy to be anxious. Am I doing a good enough job? Am
mm,
I, am I not? Am I missing things? Are things right? What's going on? All of
mm,
those things can be in your head all the time. And sometimes you just have to give yourself a break and say, right, I'm good enough.
yeah,
Let's listen to my daughter, my son. Let's hear what they're thinking, and let's try and, just listen to those basic needs and try and deal with what's in front of you because it can be really scary. It can be really
mm,
scary as a parent. I talk to lots of parents who are at the end of their tether when young people are talking about self-harm or suicidal feelings. Those things are really scary as a parent, but
yeah,
sometimes those young people are expressing things. They're talking to you, they're telling you those things. That's a real beautiful starting point on that journey to getting help
yeah,
and seeking professional help, as well as doing those things every day and starting those conversations.
mm,
Asking the young person what they need is really powerful. And
yeah,
actually, we forget to do that. We sometimes say, actually, I know what the best thing is. I'm parent, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And as dad, sometimes we're left out the loop. Sometimes young people don't come to us for those moments. They don't talk to us about feelings, but we
mm,
need them to know that we're there for them for those things as well. And sometimes we can lose our role within that. Young people can suddenly start, you know, not talking to us about feelings, and it's really important that we're able to retain that space, that we're able to listen and show that we're able to be, that we're human and that we care, and
mm,
also that we can cope with those feelings without being angry ourselves or going into our own stuff. It's critical that we're able to meet them on the level that they're at.
yeah, absolutely. So, thinking about that and thinking about starting that conversation with teenagers, do you have any ideas for kind of what you might recommend to dads on the call tonight to almost start that conversation with their young person?
I guess it's that, again, curiosity
Yeah,
about and knowing who they are, going
mm,
up and just having a conversation about what they love.
Mm.
Sometimes the most powerful thing I can do with my daughter is go, "Oh, so what you watching?" Because she loves TV, and she'll sit in a room for hours and watch TV because she loves it, and connect with her favorite show. Try and talk about something that means something for her, and
Mm.
that can then be the starting point where, if she starts talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she can be off for like an hour just telling me about things, and I don't necessarily need to know it or love it,
Yeah.
but I need to know, she needs to know I'm interested in what's there. And that can be a building block, opening communication and them knowing that actually we'll listen to what's important to them. And it might be the next time that they tell you about, I'm really sad because this is happening, or I'm really struggling because this has happened at school. And
Mm.
talking about your own day and being open about when things have been tough for you, or if you've had a difficult day yourself, being able to be open and give those feelings shows that they're able to talk to you too.
Yeah. And TV shows are a really good starting point, aren't they? Because they're so neutral and
Yeah,
like or YouTube, for example, and often within kind of maybe YouTube videos or TV shows, we're seeing emotion, aren't we? And
yeah,
that's quite a nice way to start that conversation about emotion and mental health by maybe how the characters are displaying on the TV or something
yeah.
like that.
And sometimes it's just taking time. It's not
Mm.
chatting. And I know that actually sometimes people go, my daughters go, you got your dad voice on, you got your work voice on, dad. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, no. So sometimes they just want me to sit with them. They just want
Yeah.
me to be there alongside them and not talk about
Yeah.
stuff or try and ask how their day is. And they just want to be there and do something different.
Absolutely. That kind of distraction as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and young people tell us that sometimes they just, if they're really struggling, they will navigate towards their parents. And they
Mm.
tell us that when they're in the some of the darkest moments for them, they will
Mm.
go to their parent and they'll just do something like sit alongside them and watch TV,
Yeah.
watch a
That,
film,
yeah.
something like that, that is, as you say, it's neutral. It's a space that people can be in without having to talk.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jamie. That's a really nice kind of starting point, I think, to take away. And we had our session on Tuesday with Dan, and we were talking about kind of the importance of not giving eye contact as well sometimes,
Yeah,
kind of being in a car, doing some baking, whatever, kind of making that. Because talking about mental health is really, it's really intense, isn't it? And really hard for young people to open up about that. So just I like that idea of making the environment as comfortable as possible
I
in
know
order.
if I talk to my daughter and I say, "Oh, how are you feeling?" She's not going to tell me anything.
No.
So, it doesn't work, and it's just about being natural with them
Yeah.
and having those natural interactions that you're the expert in and that you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Jamie. I really do feel like we could speak all night about mental health and
Yeah,
well-being,
definitely.
but yeah, but we are already at the end of tonight's session. So I just wanted to say such a massive thank you for your insight on all of that, Jamie. I'm going to ask Emma to share her screen now to share the QR code. We'd really appreciate any feedback from dads tonight on tonight's session. So if you scan the QR code, it will take you to the form, but we will try and get a link into the chat as well, so that you can, if you're not able to scan a QR code. This is the first time that we've ever ran sessions specifically for dads, so we're really keen to take any learning away for future sessions. And one final plea, we were expecting higher uptake on these sessions. So if you have any ideas or suggestions of how we can reach more dads in the future, any ideas would be really welcome, either on the feedback form or in the chat. Wanted to say again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We do appreciate it was a very quick session looking at a very important topic. But as we did mention at the start, we do have our YouTube channel, which has a variety of videos discussing a really wide range of topics relevant to parents of teenagers. We have a couple of specific sessions, especially about mental health and well-being. So please do go and have a browse, and we'll get that link posted in the chat as well. We will be back again next Tuesday discussing healthy relationships, and next Thursday looking at exploitation and drugs. So if you haven't yet booked onto these sessions, we'll also get a link into the chat for that soon. Thank you again, and thank you so, so much to Jamie for all of your tips, advice, and insight tonight. It was really nice to have that perspective from both a mental health professional, but also from that dad perspective as well. So we feel really lucky to have had you join us tonight, Jamie, and really do appreciate your insight. So take care, everyone. We'll hopefully see you all next week in our 2 sessions next week, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks, Jamie. Bye.